Hi guys, in this video we'll be looking at the basics of defending in Age of Empires 2 when playing on open maps like Arabia. If you find this video helpful, please consider subscribing, do hit the like button, leave me a comment as it will really help the channel to grow. So when I was asked by some subscribers to make a video about how to defend in AOE2, I must admit I was a little bit unsure on how I would go about explaining this in the video, because as with most things in AOE2, it depends on the situation. There's a lot of factors to include, the biggest one being your skill level versus your opponent's skill level. Other factors can include your civilization versus your opponent's civilization, the map generation, the strategy your opponent's using, and many more factors. So I've decided on discussing these main generic areas. So being aggressive yourself and choosing a strategy, civ choices and predictable strategies, maps, walls, scouting information, unit counters and positioning, and towers. So the biggest tip I would say is that attack really is the best form of defense. If you're able to attack the enemy and keep pressuring them, they're more likely to be stuck at home defending rather than attacking you, and it's important to maintain that pressure. Make sure you control your army and don't leave them there to fight automatically, because even a smaller army can kill them if the enemy is micromanaging his army. So control groups and hotkeys will really help with this, as you can easily flick back and forth from your town centre to your army. Take advantage of hill bonuses where possible, drawing your enemy over to the hill, as your army will cause more damage when fighting downhill and your enemy will cause less damage when fighting uphill. In terms of choosing a strategy to attack with, again, this is situational, depends on your map, your skill level and your enemy's civ and the strategy that they're likely to use. Look at your own civilization. What strengths does it have? Is it an archer civ or one that's better with cavalry? Think ahead. What are you hoping to achieve when you reach the castle age? Are you going to continue with archers or cavalry, or transition into something else like archers or crossbows with knights or mangonels? If your enemy base is quite far across the map, you might want to consider scouts as your feudal rush, because you'll be able to reach the enemy more quickly. If your base is very open and difficult to wall up, you may want to consider a drush or a men-at-arms before moving into your preferred choice of archers or scouts, as this will give you more time to wall up, because your militia or your men-at-arms will be attacking the enemy at the very start of the feudal age, if not before. So this will delay their rush, giving you time to wall up. At lower levels, you can often predict the enemy strategy based on their civilization. For example, 95% of the time, Franks will go for a scout rush, Britons will go for an archer rush. So you can plan your strategy to counter this, but it's always best to keep scouting the front of the enemy base in order to find out exactly what military buildings they're going for, so that you can be sure exactly what their strategy is. You can also scout the resources, try and get an idea of their build order in the Dark Age or when they hit feudal age. If they've got 3 or 4 villages on gold in the Dark Age, this could indicate archers, potentially men-at-arms. So you should be able to find the militia are garrisoned inside the barracks too, so you should then know that men-at-arms will be on the way once feudal age comes in. You could even scout them earlier enough to still find them in the barracks to know if there's a drush coming your way as well. So you could even place foundations of palisade walls around certain resources like gold, as then you'll be able to see the villagers when they're walking over the top of them. So don't actually go and build anything on them, just place the foundations there. So generally at lower levels you won't see much other than a fast castle, an archer rush or a scout rush, and these will be based on the civilization's strengths. So at mid to higher levels you'll see more advanced strategies like a drush or a men-at-arms build. A drush or a men-at-arms build order can be really beneficial in giving you that upper hand by being able to attack very early. Your enemy might not expect it, and it can cause them to panic and disrupt their own sort of build order, so slowing them down. So just make sure that you don't leave your troops alone for too long, or they'll run into the town centre and die. So now we're going to talk about walls. Walls are very important in AOE2, certainly in the current meta of the game, so it's important to think of where you can wall and start placing your buildings there. so that they form part of the wall. This will save you time in walling up fully in the future. You'll want to make sure that you've got some villagers there, ideally collecting resources close by so that they can easily build houses behind the walls if they're being attacked, or they can repair the walls so that the enemy can't get through. Don't try to wall off too much of the map. That's certainly a big mistake that lower level players can make. I used to be guilty of that back in the day, but this will waste time and you won't gain anything from it. Trying to be greedy will result in your enemy getting into your base before you can finish the walls. Also, try not to wall into too small a space so that you're stuck without any room to build. Walls should ideally span between wood lines and other resources, and this will save you some time and some wood, as there's already a natural wall there, so you've not got to build anything in those spots. So if you've walled and your opponent has just gone for a standard scout rush or an archer rush, they'll find it difficult to get through your walls. Men at arms will tear down walls though, which is again why people at higher levels tend to go for men at arms before making the archers or scouts or skirmishers. So if you have an open map and you can't wall in time before the scouts attack you, you could just build some palisades around your resources rather than around your whole base. So this will stop the scouts, militia and potentially the men at arms getting to your villages. This won't work against ranged units though, so just be mindful of that. I've seen many a time where people have quick walled around their units, their villages, and just get shot down by archers. So the walls don't work against the archers, unfortunately, or the skirmishers. Walls can be tricky. There's no definitive answer as to when you should wall up, because it can have a effect on your economy, because you're using a villager to, or possibly even two villagers, to go and do some walling rather than collecting the resources, so it will ultimately slow down your build order. But I would usually recommend starting to wall up at the end of the Dark Age so that you're hopefully fully walled up by the time that the enemy hits Feudal Age. In terms of unit counters, I could go into much more detail about this, but in terms of the Feudal Age, skirmishers counter archers and spearmen, archers counter men-at-arms and spearmen, and spearmen counter the scouts. So if you're attacking with archers but your enemy has scouts, add a couple of spearmen to your army when you attack. Likewise, if you're going for scouts and the enemy has archers and spearmen, you might want to consider going for the scouts into skirmishers build order, which you can find on the channel. It's really effective actually. I really like it. If your enemy is attacking with scouts and you haven't walled, you can easily defend with a few well-placed spearmen. So a couple of spearmen on stand ground or guard stance near your resources will probably be enough to sort of deter the enemy player from trying to rush you and get in at your wood lines or your gold, because those spearmen will be there to scare them off basically. Okay, so last bit really is just to talk about defending from a tower rush. So thankfully you don't see many tower rushes nowadays, since they've made the actual towers weaker and easier to destroy, which is fantastic, because there was a stage where pretty much every game you would be getting tower rushed and it was dead annoying. So there's a few ways to counter this, but it can be tricky if the opponent's already got a few towers in play. So walling up will help slow them down and slow them from getting into your base. If they do get into your base, you'll want to build your own counter tower so that it prevents them from advancing any further whilst you attack the tower with villagers. You may want to add a few villagers to stone in order to make more towers if you need to. You could also try to focus on your economy, trying to get enough of an economy together to be able to go to the Castle Age, so that you make knights or mangonels and they will literally tear the towers down very quickly. So probably the most effective way is to just carry on with your normal rush and raid their economy, because if they've gone for the standard sort of 18 population tower rush, then they won't have been able to wall up. So this, with perhaps a counter tower back at home, should certainly do the trick. So don't panic. That's one of the big things with the tower rush. If you start panicking, you're going to lose. Just concentrate on what your game plan is, not their game plan. Concentrate on your own game. So that's pretty much it from this video, guys. So if you found this useful, please consider subscribing and like and comment on the video. I generally reply to all comments, So do let me know what you think. It'll really help the channel to grow, and it will be very much appreciated. So that's it, guys. I'll see you on the next one.